Okay. Hello? Can anybody hear me?
Hello.
Sorry. You know, I think I've identified a problem. When you guys get to the meeting before I do, then it disappears from my board, and then I can't get to it unless I screw around. So that I'm sorry. So sorry I'm late. So, okay. Does anybody have any questions before I start?
I do have a question actually, yeah.
Okay.
Your atherosclerosis video on YouTube, I was not actually able to see that because it was taken down or something like that.
Really?
So, yeah.
Did anybody else have a problem?
I couldn't view it either. It said that the person was like deleted their account or something.
Really? I just watched it.
Yeah, I
Huh.
couldn't do it.
Oh, it's so good. Really, it didn't work? Okay, well, let me look at it. Let me write this down. Oh, man. So is this my lecture or the animation?
The animation.
Yeah, okay. Let me check that. Okay. All right, that one I didn't watch. I thought we were talking about the other one. Okay, did you guys want to go over atherosclerosis quickly then? Yeah, okay. Let's see if I can get to the right PowerPoint. Maybe. Maybe not. There's whiteboard, launch meeting, to show all windows. I think it's this one. Okay, do you see the atherosclerosis picture?
Yep.
Okay, so atherosclerosis is a fancy term for having your arteries fill up with kind of this fatty plaque or cholesterol. You hear people say about it, watching my cholesterol, or I've got heart disease, or I've got coronary artery disease. It's really fatty materials that accumulate in the arteries, and they cause inflammation in the wall of the artery. So you can see this this picture here. This big circle should be almost completely clear, and there's just this little kind of L-shaped backwards L here that's clear. The rest of it is filled with fat, and it's mostly fat. There's some inflammatory cells. There might be some calcium deposits, and so it blocks the flow of blood. And it roughens the surface of the artery so that clots can form there. So it's the most important disease process, not only in the United States, but in the world. Okay, and so it starts with you young people eating burgers and not exercising and getting certain infections that can damage your artery walls and things like that. And it really doesn't cause any problem until you're more close to my age, till you're in your 40s or 50s. And then it's so filled the walls of blood vessels that it can completely cut off the flow of blood to the heart. Or sometimes this happens to the brain. Sometimes a blood clot will form right in these places. So this is the most important cause of heart attacks. It's the most important cause of strokes. More than half of all Americans will die from this process. Okay, but it won't say this on their death certificate. It'll say stroke or heart attack. Okay, and so this happens slowly over time. It doesn't, you know, it's not fast. It's years and years and years. Let's see, here I have another picture of it. Let me see if I can get to this. Yeah, there's kind of a 3D cartoon of an artery. And it shows that the fat builds up under the inner wall, and it closes and closes and closes that. And this is common. Most of us have some degree of this. Okay, most of us have a certain amount of it, even at your age, where you're young and feeling good and feeling healthy, you'll have a little bit of this. And it won't become a problem until you're older. And even then, for some of you, you won't get much of it. But for some of us, it'll be a big problem. For some of us, um, it'll cause a heart attack or a stroke. Okay, and the risk factors for having a lot of this are being older. That's one of the main risk factors. But then the other risk factors are having a diet that's rich in fatty materials, particularly animal fats, like that you would get from eating pork or beef, or drinking a lot of whole milk, or eating a lot of really good high-fat cheeses, or the really good ice cream, Ben and Jerry's. That's really good. That contains a lot of that fat. The other risk factors are things like not having an active lifestyle. Okay, if you're sedentary and you don't get out for any kind of physical activity, regular physical activity, just like walking, that puts you at higher risk. Having a lot of stress makes this worse, because the stress causes you to constrict your arteries. And it also, if you're continually stressed, you'll have more fats in your blood. Other things that are really bad are like smoking, alcohol consumption, obesity, diabetes. Diabetes tends to make this much worse. And so it's some of us are more at risk than others. There'll be some people that will, they can eat all this food, they can do all these things, and they don't have to exercise, and their arteries look pretty good. But others of us aren't going to be so lucky. So some people are more susceptible, but there's definitely a lifestyle component. And I think about that somewhere in one video. I think maybe, hold on. I think, yeah. So smoking is one of the big risk factors, because smoking has nicotine, and nicotine causes the muscle in the artery wall to constrict, and so it makes the opening smaller. And if you're a regular smoker, your arteries are smaller all the time. And so then you're more likely to have a smaller diameter anyway. Nicotine also raises the amount of fats in your blood. That's why people who smoke, they tend to lose weight, because they're not as hungry, because it increases the fats. And then smoking also increases the carbon monoxide in your blood, which makes your blood cells less useful, so your body makes more. So it makes your blood thick, raises your blood pressure. So smoking is one of the worst things. And again, for young people, smoking is not as, their arteries are generally pretty clean anyway. They can withstand all this stuff. But by the time you're my age, it's a different story, because then you've got more fat and you've got more other problems. Let's see here. There was another one. Okay, then the other really beneficial activity that can kind of counterbalance this is aerobic exercise. This is the type of exercise that goes on for 15 or 20 minutes continuously and raises your heart rate, not super high, but enough, 60 to 70% of maximum. So for me, that's getting my heart rate from 70 at rest to about 105. And so that's a brisk walk. And so if I go out and walk the dog, particularly if I'm walking the dog in a hilly area, this is all I got to do to get this training effect. And this makes my heart pump more efficiently, lowers my resting heart rate. It gives me practice opening and closing most of my arteries, so my arteries are in better shape. And this is the type of weight loss that's most associated with or type of exercise most associated with weight loss and better glucose levels, is this continual activity. And so this could be running, this could be long distance biking, it could be long distance swimming, but it could be something just as simple as a 20 or 30 minute walk with a dog, or 20 or 30 minutes of yard work, continual yard work that raises your heart rate. It doesn't necessarily have to be the type of exercise that's done in a gym. It's just regular exercise. And so this kind of counterbalances atherosclerosis. Okay. All right. So let's see if I can stop that. Was that helpful in any way? Maybe, yes? Okay. So have you guys heard atherosclerosis before? Maybe a little bit, not
I had never.
never. But you hear about cholesterol. They talk about cholesterol and plaque.
Right.
And so it's this process, and this is you're not gonna get heart disease in a year. That's not gonna happen quickly, but it can start when you're young, and then it gradually happens over time. And so it's something that happens to older people, but you can prevent it when you're young by adopting a good lifestyle. And that doesn't mean you have to do everything, but that you gradually adopt these things like a healthy diet. And I should point out, not all fats cause atherosclerosis. There are some very fatty foods that where the fats don't accumulate in the arteries. So like you can eat a lot of fish, and those are different types of fats. They don't accumulate in your artery. They recommend cooking with plant oils like olive oil. You can drink it, and it doesn't accumulate in your artery, even though it's fatty and it doesn't taste good. It's a type of fat that's actually not going to accumulate, and it'll help you get rid of some of the fats. And these fats in your arteries, that doesn't mean they're there forever. You can get rid of them, but it involves changing your diet, and that change has to be a pretty permanent change. And so if someone goes in, like your parent goes in and they say, you've got atherosclerosis, they're going to give them some dietary changes. And that doesn't mean they have to give up all red meat, but that then they have to switch so that there's a balance of more of these better fats, and fewer of those bad fats. But it's a big change. Changing your diet is one of the hardest things. We grow up eating a certain way. Everyone around us eats that way. That's why we eat that, because we've been taught by our parents and all the relatives. And so, it's very hard for one person to change their diet, because then if you go to your parents' house, you can't eat because they're eating something completely different, and maybe you're not supposed to eat that way. And so changing diet is a really hard thing to do, particularly if everyone around you is eating steak, swiggling milk, and having cheese-covered potatoes. It's very hard for you not to do that, because you've got to cook something different, and you've got to watch these people eat it, the old stuff that you really enjoy eating. So those are hard lifestyle changes, but you can do that. And then, of course, the other things, there are medications that'll lower your cholesterol, and so those medications can help you, and so that can be very helpful. And then if your heart arteries are blocked, there are surgeries that they can do. They can do a stent to open it up. They can do an angioplasty that opens it up, or they can do a bypass, which goes around the blockage. And it won't be that all your arteries are full. It'll be that there will be specific spots that are blocked. And so those spots are kind of roughed up, and then once a little bit of plaque accumulates there, then more accumulates. And so that's why. Okay, any questions? No? Okay, so we've covered a bunch of really serious health problems on this exam and for this exam. So, and they're kind of related, and I want to point that out, that people that have diabetes, okay, they're also likely to have atherosclerosis, because the plaque tends to accumulate at damaged parts of the arteries. And with diabetes, they get damage to small arteries. And so unfortunately, they tend to have atherosclerosis, and it doesn't heal well. So one of the problems with diabetes is it makes you more likely to have atherosclerosis. Hypertension, again, this high blood pressure, this has a different cause. Okay, it's often caused by retaining salts and retaining fluids. but it also damages artery walls, and those are also spots where you're likely to get atherosclerosis. Okay, with both hypertension and diabetes, that's more likely to happen if you have obesity. Atherosclerosis is more likely to happen if you have obesity. So the bad news is all these things can happen in the same individual, and having one makes you more likely to have the other. And so particularly diabetes, for people that develop diabetes, they're very, very likely to have atherosclerosis. And if they were obese when they develop diabetes, they may have hypertension as well. So these are really serious issues. For me, this is all really recent. Last year, 2019, my mom passed away, and she had hypertension and atherosclerosis. And her atherosclerosis was secondary to kind of the hypertension. And so those two problems work together to produce congestive heart failure. So, you know, and she was fairly active, but she was overweight. She was a longtime caretaker for my dad, and that's extremely stressful. That's missing sleep, you know, and stuff like that. And so that's when her hypertension developed. So really, really serious stuff. You know, the good news is she was 87 when she passed, so that's not bad. 87 is okay. You've won the race at 87. So, but it's still hard for me. You know, it's only a year. I'm still thinking. And 2020 hasn't been so great either.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, but so for people your age, it's your parents and your grandparents. These are big issues, and it's helpful to be able to understand how these issues are related. Okay, because they are, and the doctors are going to talk to your parents and your grandparents, and they're going to say, change your diet, and that's a really hard thing to do, because, you know, like for my mom, we were working on dietary changes for my mom. She was 85 and trying to change her diet. She was not happy about that. That was, you know, my mom liked cookies, and she liked cookies, and she wanted the oily, buttery cookies, and that was, you know, more than once she said, I'd rather die than give these up. And so, of course, but for us, it was not what we wanted to hear. Okay. So these are big problems: diabetes, hypertension, atherosclerosis. Atherosclerosis is heart attack and stroke. Hypertension is congestive heart failure. And so usually, and hypertension is also kidney failure. These are the most important killers of Americans. Of course, most of those Americans are older, but it doesn't matter when it's your parents. It doesn't matter how old it is. It's a big deal. And all of us are headed down that road. Okay. All right. So does anybody have any questions about hypertension? No? Okay. So you have salt-sensitive hypertension. So it's associated with salt. Okay. Often, very, very often. It's associated with obesity. Okay. Those are the risk factors, the main risk factors. And of course, age is a big risk factor. Okay. With hypertension, again, some people are more susceptible than others. We don't know everything about it, so we talk about risk factors: age, diet, you know, obesity. With diabetes, also age, diet, obesity, and again, there's genetic factors. You know, some people can be 100 pounds overweight and never develop diabetes, but it makes it more and more likely. So these are really, really important causes. For anybody that's interested in healthcare, these are the primary things you're dealing with. The most important, the most difficult treatments are associated for those things. And so that's partly why we cover them, is because these are important organ systems and there's important problems associated with it. And so it can help you understand what's happening to people around you, and help you make sure that you do as well as you can for as long as you can. Okay. All right. Let's see. So we have the next exam. It'll be similar to the previous exam. there'll be 2 essays that it'll ask you to write like a paragraph. Use an example. You try and explain it as much as you can. Almost certainly there'll be something about these healthcare problems like atherosclerosis, hypertension, and diabetes. Those are the biggest ones. And so I want to make sure that you understand that you understand why those are important. What, you can't guarantee you won't get it, but you can improve your odds. And it's what we can do. And with all of those, they talk about risk factors. Risk factors means this is a contributing cause. Doesn't mean it's the sole cause, but it's a contributing cause. Let's see. When we talked about the nervous system, we talked about concussions, just because that's in the news a lot with America's favorite sport, football. But you have concussions in other sports. You have concussions from falls. You have concussions in car accidents. And those concussions produce temporary problems, but now we know they also produce long-term problems. And that we think for a significant number of people, that maybe symptoms of dementia are really related to trauma, physical trauma. And that trauma may have occurred years and years before. And so that's important. So we covered that. Trying to think what else. Oh, we talked about memory and learning. Repetition is important. Those types of things are important. Okay, I will try, and particularly with the nervous system, there's all this physiology about how nerve cells work. I want you to know that there's an electrical change at the surface of the nerve cell that involves the movement of ions in and out. I won't ask as much detail as there might be. I might ask you about action potential, and I might ask you about how nerves signal other nerves, and that's what those neurotransmitters. But I won't go into a huge amount of detail there. And same with the endocrine system. There's tons of hormones. I think I gave you some tips on what glands to focus on: the pituitary gland and the pancreas. These are all these little kind of negative feedback cycles that help us maintain homeostasis. Again, hormones are chemical signals, but this time they're released into the blood, okay? And they can go anywhere in the body. And so insulin is released by your pancreas, but it works on your muscle cells, it works on your liver cells, it works on your fat cells, and it just gets there by the blood. And then there's a receptor for it. What are some other big topics? There was a little section on endocrine disruptors. That's kind of any chemical that kind of looks like the hormone molecule can sometimes cause things to go haywire. And so those chemicals that we think can sometimes interact with or look like the normal hormones and interact with the receptors can cause things to be inappropriate. And so we're not sure about these things, but we're pretty sure that they exist and that they can be a problem. And so in diabetes, people that have diabetes tend to have a lot of these in their fat tissue. So it's a concern. Okay. Anybody have any specific questions? No? I've kind of run out of gas. Okay. Let's see. The cardiovascular, the hypertension, atherosclerosis, diabetes, 3 huge things. I'll definitely ask about all of them. I'll ask a little bit about how the normal system functions and what it does. It'll be similar, same length as the previous exam, 2 essay questions, and I'll try and put them right in front so that you see them right away. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm going to stop there unless you ask me a question quick.
I've got one question for you.
Sure, Kayla.
It's about last week's quiz. I actually was forced to wear an eye patch over the weekend because I scratched my eye up real bad. I was wondering if I could still take that quiz. Is that a possibility?
I can leave it open for you for a couple days.
That
Okay.
would be amazing. Okay.
All right.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. All right, then I'm going to sign off. I'll record. This is being recorded. I'm going to put it up on the thing so if anyone else wants to see it, they can see it. And if you guys want to go back to it, you can go back to it. Okay?
All right.
All
Thank
right.
you.
All right. See you later.